Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lachlan Callahan here from Fortum Wealth. As you know, this is another production brought to you by Port Jackson Securities. I'd like to thank them very much for having us. Just so everyone knows, this is not financial advice. This webinar is just for educational purposes only, just to provide coverage on our Little Green Farmer. And we have the beautiful CEO from Little Green Farmer, Fleta Solomon, to join us today. Thank you, Fleta, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
That's
and
okay.
I want to apologise for yesterday for everybody that was involved. I tell you what, I might not be great with IT, but we are good as a medicinal cannabis company, and we know how to cyber attack.
Well, that's the only thing that's important to us, so that's all good. Fleta, can you tell us a little bit more about who is Little Green Farmer and how they came about?
Yeah, so Little Green Farmer, it's a West Australian owned company. We're a vertically integrated medicinal cannabis company. So this means we operate across that supply chain in its entirety. So we do the cultivation and the manufacturing, which is wonderful because we can keep a close eye out on all those activities and we have complete control over those. And we were the first company in Australia to actually produce Australian grown, so locally grown cannabinoid medicines. So we've had medicines launched since August 2018, and it's always nice to have that bit of a competitive advantage being the first company because your brand gets out there. So really fortunate to be in that position.
Okay. And I have a few clients of myself that ask a few questions about how you came about your company. Can you just tell us more about how you are and who you are and where you came from?
Of course. So yes, my name's Fleta, as you've already introduced, and my background is in the health science. So I actually did sports science, and I've always been in the career of the health space, but helping to change people's lives. So I started a company called On-Site Health Solutions back in 2002, and it grew to be Australia's largest workplace provider of health programs. So we would do behaviour change type programs out on mine sites and oil rigs and construction sites, and I sold that company in 2012. It's still going today. It's run by the Sanitarium Group, so Weet-Bix company. And after I finished that, I had dabbled in a few little startups, all to do with health, and one of them was a water technology business, and it could potentially treat contaminated water to render it drinkable. And although that particular company didn't eventuate because of it was a science issue, or the scientist and the inventor, what I realised is my passion was being able to start a commercial opportunity in a new industry that actually had social impact. And that was the moment where I felt that, wow, you can do both things. You can have a commercial opportunity, but actually help people at the same time. And so I finished an MBA, and I was looking at the cannabis industry going, wow, this is just so incredible. This could potentially help so many people around the globe. And I was introduced to another inventor who had a patent, and it's to basically make the active ingredients in a substance, so for example, medicinal cannabis, and make it really small so that it passes through the blood-brain barrier and into the body more effectively. So essentially it makes it more bioavailable, but a much smaller amount. And so it was at that moment in time, I was sitting on a bench in Yallingup in Western Australia, and I thought, wow, what if we could supply the world not only with Australian grown cannabis medicines, but also change people's lives? You have a new delivery technology and solve real patient problems. And that was at the beginning of 2017, and that's when the company was born.
Okay. And so from where the company was to now, what's the success of the Australian market, and what's the demand that's out there in the Australian market as well?
Yeah, so the Australian market's huge. The demand at the moment is just growing exponentially, and There've been over 100,000, so 116,000 SASB approvals. So when a doctor prescribes cannabis as a medicine, it's done through what they call a special access scheme. So there have been 116,000 approvals. So it doesn't necessarily mean patient numbers, so there's a difference there. But it's completely, every single month there seems to be more and more approvals, which is fabulous. There have been over 215 different medical conditions that the TGA have accepted, or that this has been prescribed for. So that's a huge amount more than the initial list that they came up with. I think when it first launched in 2016, the government suggested there were 4 or 5 conditions that cannabis may have a role to play in, but 215 conditions is a huge amount. And interestingly, among those, chronic pain is definitely the largest. So that's about 62% of the total approvals. It could be a little bit more because there are so many conditions, other conditions that might not have been classified as chronic pain, but sit under that umbrella. You've got anxiety, which is the next biggest one. So 12.5% of all SASB. So mental health is huge when it comes to cannabis medicine. And PTSD is right up there as well, as is insomnia. So the amount of people that ring and say, oh my goodness, I can sleep now. I've never had such a good sleep. So these are the types of people who are benefiting from cannabis medicines in Australia. And in terms of a Little Green Pharma success in that Australian market, we've now got 12,000, or about 12,000 patients across Australia, which is fabulous. We've sold about 60,000 units in total, but that's flower product as well as oil product that we sell. So there's a difference between those two medicines, both containing cannabinoids. Yeah, so look, we're doing really well there. Our revenue and our sales a month-on-month increase. So we're really happy with the way the company is tracking and the way that we're educating and engaging the medical society in Australia, because it's still a big education and learning curve for these individuals. We have to remember that it wasn't long ago that cannabis was a prohibited substance, and we need to look at it from the medical practitioner's point of view. And so there's always going to be a bit of time to adjust to that and to educate them. So, but we're doing really well considering it was only legalized just a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And so is that what Little Green Pharma current growth strategy is? What's the growth strategy from now? Is it more of the changing of minds of those medical professionals, or is it more of a industry standard where you set the standard and you're pushing through those goals that you want to reach?
Yeah, it's a great question. And our vision is to do extraordinary things for our patients. And our mission or our purpose is to solve real patient problems. And one of those problems right now is patient access. And again, that comes down back to exactly what you were just saying in doctor education. So it's a very big part of our strategy. And I guess I'll just start, particularly for investors and shareholders wanting to know what's the growth strategy of the company. It's quite simple. There are 3 things that we're targeted and focused on. The first one is patient acquisition in Australia. That's vital. It's so important because, one, it's really market validity for the rest of the world. And also it generates immediate cash flow. But it also makes us think outside the square and say, well, if all the doctors are not prescribing cannabis medicines, how do we connect patients to a doctor? And how do we fill that gap? And so we've got the most creative team who are coming together to say, is it a portal? Is it a fund, in health insurance fund of Australia that helps to connect the dots? And so we need to think outside the square on that one. So that's the first strategy is Australian sales. The second one, and it's our primary target, and it's the most important right here and now, which is commercial sales volumes in international markets. So we've proven ourselves in Australia, but for this company to work, for us to get a really great return on investment for our shareholders, we have to export because Australia is such a small country in comparison.
Yeah.
So when you look at, say, Germany alone that has 82 million people versus our 25 million, it's a much larger opportunity. So that's our primary target, and that's how we've positioned ourselves. We've just started that export process, and that's where we'll continue to focus our efforts. And then third strategy that I have to mention, because it's at the heart of the business and it's really the reason for being here, but it's a longer term game plan, is drug development and innovation. So it's that drug delivery technology that I mentioned at the start, that patent, that the technology and advancements to make medicine more available to the human body. And that is something that doesn't come quickly. You have to work, it takes years, and there's an investment behind that, as well as research time. So in bringing any new drug to market takes a really long time, but we're well on the way. It's really exciting, but it is a longer term game plan. So it's, you know, a couple of years away, but we're on track with that one.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And I do have a few questions coming in, but we'll just leave those to the end at the moment. But that is an opportunity for everyone. If you want to send through a few questions, we will have an opportunity at the end of the webinar for Fleta to answer those. But this actually relates to the next point that I wanted to bring up. It's more competition. What makes Little Green Pharma unique to other sort of cannabis and medicinal marijuana medical companies out there at the moment?
Do you know what? It's a great question. And the first thing I'm going to say is we're very patient-centric. So with all of the decisions we make, we do it with the patient in mind, and we know that we have to operate a business. It needs to be a commercial and sound decision. But how are we including the patient, because they're our end customer? So we are very patient driven, and that's, I think, what makes us very unique. We set up the Little Green Pharma brand so that we wanted to be really approachable. We wanted to be really trusted, have an authentic Australian brand where a patient could pick up the phone and speak to a real human and talk to us. And we pride ourselves on that. So that's on the patient front. On the business side, look, having that early mover advantage is significant because we are about brand equity, and we plan to be a real global force in the medicinal cannabis space, not only in Australia but overseas, and we're starting to do that. And that's thanks to the quality of the Australian cannabis regulatory framework that's been set up. Australia really does have the highest quality cannabis medicines across the world. So it's a significant opportunity, not only for Little Green Pharma, but Australian cannabis companies, so long as they've got that GMP, which is good manufacturing practice. It's a license that's necessary on the manufacturing side, and it's a very intense process to get. But once you have got that, it basically means that you're compliant with the EU. So you cannot sell overseas and into jurisdictions like Germany, for example, if you don't have that. And there are very few companies across the globe that can claim to have that positioning. So I guess that's a very unique point to Little Green Pharma, is that we have those credentials, but we've also got pathways and the existing networks and supply agreements for clients in Germany, UK. We're the only ones in France. There's a huge trial being run in France by the government, and we're one of only 4 suppliers in that market. We're starting into New Zealand now. So the list just keeps going on and on. But so we're setting ourselves up. Sometimes we send a very small shipment out, and it could be just 1,000 bottles, but that commercial volume is quite irrelevant for us at this stage, because they're more strategic shipments. They're about getting out into those new countries, getting into the pharmacies, into the doctor network, getting patients on the medicine, so that we know that we've proven out that pathway, and then it's about delivering volume. So I think we're set up really, really well, a very sound strategy and growth plan ahead.
Okay. Because you talk about the global market as the way to go, and the where we're going for Little Green Pharma. What's the opportunity there in the international market for Little Green Pharma to grow? Where are we going to see it go?
Oh, this is exciting. So yeah, there's so much blue sky in this industry, and so there are a couple of numbers that I'll share with you. And recently, Canaccord did a initiation research report for LGP and looked at our market that we're playing in. And as I mentioned, we're one of the leaders in this space across the globe. And they estimate that our target market, so the total addressable market of our playground, is about 23 billion Australian. So that's across several countries, including Australia, France, Germany, UK, Denmark, Brazil. And of course, that will only increase when legislation changes and new countries come on, or patient access is made easier in these particular countries. So it just gives you an idea of the opportunity ahead. And I guess what's important for listeners is, and this is why the Australian market is so important for us now for that market validity, is because we estimate, based on those SASB approvals, that there are about 60,000 patients in Australia who have benefited from cannabis medicines. And of those, we have 12,000 patients. We roughly think it's 20% market share in Australia. Now, we know that the black market is massive. So in Australia, it is estimated that there's currently 600,000 Australians accessing cannabis on the black market for medical purposes. Now, what's happening is there's a real shift of bringing across those black market users to the legal market, because the prices have come down dramatically, the quality is better, you're getting a prescription, and it's really safe. And so the rec market is coming across, so it's quite a unique position for the entire industry, because we're starting to see those flower sales in particular really build up. So, and just to add to the opportunity, we estimate it's 2 to 3% of a population of any country. And so if you look at those types of numbers, and if we've got that market share in Australia, then we know we're going to be setting up ourselves really well in these new countries or jurisdictions as they open up. So a huge potential there.
Okay, that's lovely. That's great. That's great news to hear. And I'm sure that definitely does get a few investors or prospective shareholders to prick up their ears and hear what's happening. But from your opinion, once again, this isn't financial advice to anyone, but why invest into Little Green Pharma? What's the go? Why should they stick around? Where's the industry going?
Okay, so I guess on the back of that blue sky and that market opportunity, Little Green Pharma, we've set up from the beginning as a really lean business model. We enjoyed our maiden half-yearly profit at the end of last year, so we positioned ourselves so that as we grow, and of course we're going to have operational capex and opex as well, but we're just positioned so well because we've always had cost consciousness throughout the business, and that just continues. We're well funded, so we have 28.5 million in the bank. I guess the blue sky associated with that, the market in Australia and overseas, and we've demonstrated how to capture that. So now it's just about having resources overseas, and that's what we're currently implementing. And I guess as well, look, it's really safe to say one of our distributors in Germany alone, we sent them 500 units last quarter. We've got an order for them for 9,000 units this quarter. Next quarter, it's 17,000 units, and it's just going up and up from there. So when you actually have a look at those unit numbers, and it's getting up around the 50,000 mark, and our facility can produce, over 100,000. But with these types of orders, our facility is very well on track to be operating at full capacity, and knowing that we've got that opportunity to expand if we need to is also really fabulous. So this just reflects the demand from Germany and also the confidence in the LGP medicine that's going across to these jurisdictions. So I think just to have those sales pipelines, it's really wonderful for us because it's a safe supply for them. But also finally, just to finish up on that point, is our track record of execution. I think we're very known for hitting our milestones, and every time we come out with a presentation and say this is what we're going to achieve, we do it. So we're very cautious about the statements that we put out, but when we do, we're very comfortable, we're very solid about them. So that's
awesome.
Little Green Farm.
Awesome. Well, we might go into a few questions that we have here. And the first one that popped up for me was from Audrey. And Audrey's asking about what's the turnover rate from plantation to bottle in days per se?
Yeah, so to bottle, so we're looking at oil medicines. It takes roughly 3 months to grow, so 12 weeks to grow the medicine or to grow the plants, a couple of weeks harvest, drying, and then bottling. So within about 4 months, you're looking at you can have an end product from the time that you take a cutting. So we do clones. So rather than doing seeds, which take longer, we take cuttings from beautiful mother plants. They're the progeny. And then it's about a 4-month turnaround before we get an end product.
Okay. And I have another question here from Mark. Mark's asking, where's the biggest market currently for medicinal marijuana?
Right now, it would have to be, I'd say, Germany for the medicinal cannabis. North America, so Canada is quite strong, but they have quite a different regime, and because recreational is it's legal there, there's a bit of a sort of a grey area. But for us, it's definitely in Europe. So Germany, population of 82 million. France is looking like it's going to legalise in the next couple of years. There's another 65 million. UK 60 million, Brazil 230 million. So all of those countries are really important as a target market for medicinal cannabis.
Definitely. Stephanie has a question as well. She's asked, with your current cash flow, is that going to go towards marketing? As you said, that there was a need for changing of the common concept of medicinal cannabis at the moment. Is marketing going to be the way you're going to change that? That's from Stephanie.
Sure. So on the doctor education front, yes. Look, so at the end of last year, we found ourselves in this position where we were close to break even. We had that maiden profit, and we didn't have to raise. We thought we knew how we could run a tight ship and keep going and grow organically. We decided to actually raise on the back of that, not because we needed the money, but because we thought, look, if we sit here and just grow organically, this is a fast-paced industry, and we wanted to keep that leader position, and so we did end up doing a capital raise. Now, with those funds, our strategic model our strategy does not change at all. It just accelerates that, and so those funds will go towards a little bit of capex in terms of expanding our facility, but particularly having sales and marketing people, which are the educators. They're the medical educators, the engagement team. We need to have those in these markets. So in Germany, we've now got a couple of one employee in particular, and that is her job role, is to educate doctors and say, hello, this is, Little Green Pharma is here, our medicines are now in pharmacies, and our Australian medical liaison team has grown quite significantly just in the last couple of months. So I think we've probably got 5 or 6 people now across the country who are working with doctors, doing webinars and really holding their hand at every step of the way in terms of the education process. From absolutely saying this is the plant, this is how the cannabinoid reacts to the human body, even to the part where we help them to fill out these SASB application forms for the TGA, because at first, if you don't know what you're doing, it can be quite complex. And as we all know, physicians are very time poor. So where we can help them to make the process faster and easier, then it's better for everybody, including the patients. So that's
Definitely.
what we're spending the funds on. Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Well, we might just take two more questions. This one's from Antonio. He's asking, what's the greatest challenge you'll have to overcome in your current growth plan?
Good question. There are always a couple of challenges. Again, look, the doctor education space is probably the biggest challenge and the most important in the global cannabis space. But in terms of sort of internally, look, just managing the growth of the company. You know, we have gone from 30 employees just several months ago to having 70 now, and it's a huge amount to manage and to have. We have an incredible culture in this company about putting those patients first and having that cost consciousness. And when you've got such an influx of people, you know, culture can change quite quickly. So we need to keep a tab on that and just manage that growth. I don't want to grow too quickly because we've seen what can happen with the big Canadian companies when they do grow too rapidly. So I say that's probably the biggest challenge, but it's also very manageable and probably an exciting problem to have. But as we expand, we're always going to have those growth challenges.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I hope that answers your question, Antonio. And we have one final question back from Stephanie again. She's asked for your opinion on the share price. Where do you think the share price is, and how do you think it should go?
I have to be careful clearly with what I can say, but yeah, look, I think that the market just in general is looking a bit lower. I think this is a huge opportunity, though. I need to say that I just believe in this company, where it's going. The Canaccord research paper that came out, and that gives an indication of where they think the share price should be, which is much higher than what it is at the moment. I think when we compare it to the other groups, we're up there. We're probably number one in terms of the producers, and I think it's come back a little bit. It's a great opportunity to jump in, and I think with the sales demand and the orders that we have in hand, like literally hold in hand, and the market sentiment in general, not just here but overseas, it's just onwards and upwards. So we couldn't be more comfortable or confident than we are now with this industry. So despite the whole, and I don't come from a share market background or finance background, so despite the whole volatile industry, got no issues of where it's going in the future.
Perfect, perfect. Well, that's how we'll wrap it up there. Is any final comments from yourself, Fleta?
No, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has attended. I hope I have answered your questions, but please, if I haven't, or you would like to speak with me, please contact. I'm directly either through phone or through email, because that's what Little Green Farmer does. We speak to people, and I just want to apologise again for those who were on the call yesterday. Thank you for being so patient and coming back today. And yes, hopefully I do get to chat to you all. So thank you, and thank you, Lachlan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, that's all good. Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for turning out today. Yes, we had some difficulties yesterday, but we've had a good turnout today. So thank you very much all for joining us. Once again, thank you for Port Jackson Securities for hosting this webinar. My name is Lachlan Callaghan. Thank you, Fleta, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.